Hey YouTube. Hello YouTube. Coming up in a few minutes time, 12 minutes. So if you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward a bit. But otherwise, yeah, this is a good show. UKIP versus the Brexit Party. Yeah, all right, okay. Good evening, Facebook as well as YouTube. Yeah, coming up in 11 minutes. So yeah, there you go. Godfrey Bloom is with me tonight, and we're going to be talking about UKIP versus the Brexit Party. Is there a versus? And I don't know, what does it all mean? Okay, all right. Plus updates on Robin Tilbrook's case. The writ was released at 6 o'clock. This evening, and so hey, got a bit of a scoop there, didn't we, Daily Brexit? All right, okay, coming up in 10.5 minutes, folks. Yeah, coming up, folks. 9 minutes and 15 seconds. You know, I can't guarantee that this particular piece of music is going to improve. Right, okay, that's enough of that. Oh, blimey, can't be any worse. Copyright free, Nick Clegg, yeah, blimey. Oh, no. Yeah. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. Oh, you know what? Blimey. Let's try this. Oh, this is better. This guy's a bit depressed, yeah, but apart from that. Yeah, cheer up. Come on. Yeah. Searching for Brexit, mate, I tell you.
Keep moving like the scars aren't even there. It's in the air like a blazing flare. Just stare cause the flames will burn us. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me. I used to kiss your head when you cried for me. Hold your hand while the pain was over.
According to Thomas Bell, I keep buffering. No need to be rude. It's not that kind of show.
My darling dear, you're never here. When I'm in pain, you hide and disappear. Like shadows in the atmosphere, charting the stratosphere. I prayed for you and kept you near, in hopes you'd chase away my fears. I'm on my own, you made it so, and now I'm chasing nightmares. I used to run with you through the great big leaves, laugh at you when you laugh at me. Hope for us because I believe the home was just you and me. I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me.
Come on.
No point in blaming you, you did not know. Oh, I thought you were the one for me. That's why I gave you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me.
Hey Godfrey, I do apologise for this music, sir. I really do. We are streaming and be live. Well, we are live, but in a couple of minutes to kick off. And you're looking very good.
Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna do this on my own.
But come on, let's be honest. This is your style of music, sir, no? Godfrey?
Not really.
Oh, all right. Never mind.
I'm on Beethoven now, which always proves that there are good Germans.
Beethoven, yeah, that's right. But is that copyright free? I don't know. Is it copyright free? I don't know. I play a bit of Beethoven at the top of the show. You'll hear it in a minute, but that's kind of satirical. Anyway, okay, couple of minutes, sir.
I give you everything. Held you close by the stormy seas. Oh, you meant the world to me.
Oh, blimey. Thank goodness he's piped down. 1 minute and 10 seconds, people. Oh, blimey. Share the show. Oh, here we go.
Day has passed like a hurricane to my heart, to far away. See the lights on the other side. I'm going to get there and hope we will meet there.
Going to be quicker than Brexit then. Oh no, hold on. 5 seconds, only 5 seconds we have to put up with it. Right, it's enough of that. Hey folks! Good evening, good people, and welcome to the Daily Brexit. Rhino, betrayal. Holding democracy to account, fighting for self-determination and exposing plutocracy. I'm Olly Connelly. Thanks for turning up. And now, UKIP versus TBP, the Brexit Party. If LIBLABCON equals EU vassalage, what is Farage doing? Spoiling the cure? Because let's face it, the DU aside, Parliament has been bought! Time to vote UKIP then. Nigel says no. Former UKIP MEP Godfrey Bloom is here to try and make sense of this conundrum. Taking your calls, the numbers at the top of the page. No Discord tonight, I can't be bothered with that, but the numbers at the top of the page. I'm assuming the comments. And yeah, I'll take comments in both Facebook and YouTube, because you know what, I've already worked out they're as bad as each other. Anyway, please support the show, paypal.me/Brexit. Thank you. And please share the thing, like the page, all that, whatever you do. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's just get into it. Godfrey Bloom, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening to you.
Good to see you. Good to see you again. Thank you. Third time, actually, with me on this show. I appreciate it. I want to start with the news and basically what's going on in the world of fake streams. Let's have a quick look. And I thought I would lead on something a little bit different from the Brexit kind of stuff tonight. Julian Assange, yeah, who a lot of us have been following who released the Podesta emails, for example, in those WikiLeaks, which told us all about Hillary Clinton and her association with Qatar and Saudi Arabia, for example, as well as all sorts of weird stuff like spirit cooking or whatever. Mail Online, I doubt, are going to be particularly kind to Julian Assange, but they say faces up to 12 months in UK jail as judge finds him guilty of skipping bail and brands him a narcissist hours after he was dragged out of Ecuadorian embassy as US charges him with hacking 750,000 classified documents. Julian Assange is facing up to 12 months in a British prison after he was found guilty of skipping bail to avoid being extradited to Sweden in 2012 to face allegations of rape and sexual assault. Allegations which, by the way, were dropped by Sweden, were they not? The WikiLeaks founder finally appeared in court today after he was sensationally expelled from the Ecuadorian embassy in London, where he has been claiming political refuge for the past 7 years. I don't know if you've been following this at all, but Godfrey, but it does seem to me that he is another instance right now in Britain of a political prisoner.
I'm not an expert in this case. I don't know any more about this, and I've read it, like any of your listeners, in the papers. But it does seem to me that there seems to be an awful lot of kerfuffle for not very much. And rather the charges for espionage, which were going to be lodged by the United States, have been dropped. I get that from my American friends literally this evening. And I've actually asked the question of my American friends, because this is clearly a CIA-inspired game. Exactly what has this man done that would warrant a custodial sentence at all? I mean, we might argue if the Americans, with all their technology, that's their fault, not the hackers' fault, I'd have thought.
You did break up just in your last sentence there. I'm sorry, whose fault? In your opinion? Godfrey? Well, you've broken up, sir. You've broken up.
Hello, yes?
Yes, you broke up at the end.
We might have to go off. We might have to go off video. It weakens the signal.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see how we do. But yeah, okay. It will be very interesting to see how Donald Trump approaches this now, post-Mueller, with the whole Mueller investigation having fallen through the floor. As far as we can tell, if they're ever going to give us the benefit of the Mueller documents. But anyway, we will see. We will see what happens with that, and I'll be following that closely because it seems to me that Julian Assange has been doing a great deal to expose the deep state, and the Clintons and so on and so forth. Now, back to Brexit, and Westminster is leading tonight on Bill Cash asking Theresa May, will you resign? Let's have a quick look at this. This was in the Commons today. Let's have a listen to see what he has to say.
Does my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, appreciate the anger that her abject surrender last night has generated across the country, having broken 100 times promises 100 times not to extend the time? She knows what I'm saying, and she's done that. Does she also accept that this withdrawal agreement undermines our democracy, the constitutional status of Northern Ireland, our right to govern ourselves, control over our laws, and undermines our national interest? Will she resign?
Did you hear that, Godfrey? Did you hear Bill Cash there in the Commons this afternoon?
Yes, I did the clip earlier. Yes, it's interesting. The response, more important than what Bill Cash had to say, was her response.
Go on, please.
She was just laughing, giggling like a schoolgirl. She clearly doesn't understand the position at all, bless her.
Now, hold on a second, actually, because they've actually got that bit of video as well. Let's have a look and see this.
I say to my honourable friend, first of all, I do not recognise the description of the withdrawal agreement that he has put before this House. I believe we have negotiated a good deal for the United Kingdom. He references the fact that I have, he's absolutely right, on many, many occasions in this House, and he and other members of my honourable friends have been keeping count. I had said that I wanted us to leave the European Union on the 29th of March, and indeed I did. I voted for the UK to leave the European Union on the 29th of March. I wanted us to set in train that guaranteed leaving on the 22nd of May. I voted to leave on the 22nd of May. Sadly, not sufficient number of members across this House voted to leave the European Union on those dates, and hence the extension has been requested to enable us to come to a position where this House can agree on a deal that we can then deliver on leaving the European Union.
Okay, well, we've lost Godfrey's video, but we've still got his voice, which is the most important thing. Godfrey, what are your thoughts as to her response then?
Well, it's totally disingenuous, isn't it? She has her deal is actually Remain. It's a Remain deal. We stay in the customs union, we stay beholden to the ECJ, and all the other things. It's a Remain deal, and she had it clearly within her power to leave under the WTA rules, to which she had a mandate, not only from the people, she had a mandate from Parliament. She chose not to. She's unbelievable. I thought it was impossible to make Tony Blair look honest. But she does.
Okay, let me just go through the story for anybody that isn't clear on it, because it is quite important, not least in view of what this show has been covering with Robin Tilbrook's lawsuit against the government, which I'll be mentioning straight after this story because it refers really to each other, these stories. Veteran Eurosceptic MP Bill Cash has spoken for millions today in Parliament, according to Westminster, asking Theresa May to her face if she will resign after failing to deliver Brexit. He asked the PM if she appreciated the anger surrounding her abject surrender after breaking the promise to deliver the UK's EU exit on time. Cash had yesterday warned the EU that any decision by the Prime Minister to accept a long extension to Article 50 is likely to be challenged in the UK courts. With the Conservative Party collapsing in the polls, how much longer are Tory MPs going to allow May to remain in place? That sounds like a splendid question, actually, for you, Godfrey.
Well, of course, the problem is it isn't a recent problem. This hasn't just happened in the last 2 years. The Conservative Party has systematically been recruiting their MPs from central office, Conservative Party central office. They've been in charge of the whole thing, and they've been in charge of that now for nearly 25 years. And they have quite deliberately recruited what you and I would regard as Liberal Democrats, Europhile Liberal Democrats. So the House now is stuffed not with Conservatives, but with Liberal Democrats.
Illiberal anti-Democrats, surely. Sorry, carry on, please. Yes, yeah, okay. And there is something that corresponds to this story that broke actually at 6 o'clock. The writ, the action from Robin Tilbrook is now public. And his action, specifically the English Democrats Party, suing Theresa May and the Secretary of State for exiting the EU, citing the illegal extension of Article 50, as claimed also by Bill Cash MP this afternoon. I'm quoting my own story here at 6 o'clock. In fact, you know what? We got a bit of a scoop on that. That's thanks to you lot supporting this show, yeah? And in those documents, a couple of choice quotes. The claim is made on the grounds that the Prime Minister had no statutory power to extend and could not do so, exercising the prerogative powers of the Crown. And another piece I pulled out from these documents, which are quite long all in all. Accordingly, it is submitted that as of the scintilla temporis, i.e. the moment after the expiry of the said notice on the 29th of March 2019, The United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland has left the European Union, and there will be a press release to follow, I understand, from the English Democrats. Godfrey Bloom, this is very powerful stuff, but can we trust the judiciary?
No, the judiciary, they were politicised, as were the civil service, under Tony Blair's administration. He made absolutely sure that all the senior judiciary members of our system now were personal friends of his and selected on their preference for Europe, for a federal Europe. They are all federalists now in the senior judiciary and civil service. We have a House of Lords, which used to be our final court of appeal, which has almost totally remained. Yes. Because it's full of Liberal Democrats and Conservative and Labour members who are wedded to a federal Europe. So it doesn't matter how good the lawyers are, how clever the lawyers are, or what the strength of the legal case. You can't win against a rigged jury any more than you could get a win against Hitler's rigged show trials or Stalin's rigged show trials of yesteryear. We got rid of our independent judiciary some years ago.
Yeah, the Tory MPs, according to Breitbart, are seeking to change party rules so that Theresa May can be sacked early. Tory MPs have lost patience with Theresa May, her repeated efforts to delay Brexit, breaking multiple promises along the way, and are trying to organise an internal petition to change party rules and remove her as leader. We really are in a state of tyranny, are we not, sir?
Yes, and of course it's fairly Socratic. Actually, you can go back as far as Socrates, who his great fallout with the Athenian demos was that this is exactly what will happen if you have the sort of system where you have a vote. Everybody gets a vote, and therefore everybody votes in their own self-interest. And we've actually made the system worse by having a representative system of government. So we don't have proportional representation, which means your vote actually counts. What we actually have is we send a member of parliament, whether he be Conservative or Labour, who's been selected on our behalf by a very tiny number of people. It might have worked if the local authorities, the local Conservative or Labour Party associations could put forward somebody from local communities. But these people are bussed in or flown in with absolutely no knowledge or no sympathy at all with the local communities. So we don't have democracy as even the Athenians would have understood it. And that is our problem. These people don't represent us. And now we have a massive disconnect between the political class and ordinary people.
Let's take a few comments from folks right at the top of the show here, because I'm sure that this is these developments today and last night, I'm sure are concerning a lot of people. So let's hear what a few folks have to say. Matt Waterhouse, does anyone know who the judiciary are? We need to know who they are and what they get up to. When we were talking yesterday, I think it was, Godfrey, you had a very interesting point about the judiciary off the back of Tony Blair's appointments and what have you. And in fact, I think off the back of the Gina Miller case, you mentioned that they're somewhat biased, no?
Well, that was looked at by the judiciary. And of course, it only came out afterwards, but it came as no surprise to me. That 3 of those out of the 5 who were sitting on that particular case, 3 had very close links to a federal Europe. They were members of European societies and had been noted as being in support of a federal Europe. And so consequently, the numbers on that particular bench were in favour of the European Union. And of course, that runs right through Olly Robbins, for example, the negotiator for Theresa May. She selected him, was chairman of the Oxford University European Society, where, of course, I've lectured on many occasions. These people are deep-rooted federalists. Now, there's nothing ignoble about that, Olly. There's nothing wrong with that if you believe we should have a federal Europe. We should have a United States of Europe. There isn't anything inherently wrong with that, but we need to be honest about it. And of course, in this country, we don't have the honesty. What we do is we pretend still, as we did in 1975, it's a trade agreement. Now, Peter Shaw, Enoch Powell, and Tony Benn all told us this isn't just a trade agreement, but we didn't believe him. People like me, idiot me, I thought it was a free trade agreement, common market. That was on the ballot paper, and that's what many people voted for. And of course, we now know that it isn't. It's a federal Europe, and this is why you have this almost religious fervour with civil servants, academics, and the political class to not leave. They are prepared to go to any lengths not to leave. That isn't about trade. Nobody really would go to the wall on whether you're going to have 5% tariff on your new Audi or 5% on your French wine. That's absolute nonsense. This is a deep-rooted political religious fervour that they have for a federal Europe, and this is why it's being resisted.
Amanda Rolfson says, maybe we could appeal to Trump for help. He loves the EU as much as we do. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more. It's actually a very good point there, Godfrey. I mean, God forbid we had Hillary Clinton in power now. We would have no hope so far as Brexit's concerned, no? And he looks as though he will walk a second term. Surely that stands in our favour.
One of the things I liked about Trump's campaign, and I was public on this on national radio, was that he was going to favour a détente with Russia. He was going to bring the boys back from Syria. He was quite clear that no good had come from military adventurism of the United States. And of course, he, in the same way, is up against what we're about. Our deep state is totally Euro-federalist. That is our deep state. Deep state in America, a place where I have been on many occasions on lecture tours, one quite recently. Their deep state is the military-industrial complex, of course, which President Eisenhower warned us of. He warned us of this. And poor old President Trump can do no more about that than we can do about the Euro-federalists. And he was elected on bringing the boys home. He was elected on dealing with this. And he's actually increased the military budget. So he's having the same problems beating deep state as we are.
Okay. It has to be said, though. I mean, now that Mueller is behind him, that could change, no? He has had really 1.5 arms tied behind his back. Now it's down to maybe half an arm, no?
Well, I wish him well. If he can somehow break the control of the CIA, which has long since gone rogue, as Edward Kennedy pointed out, the industrial military complex, which President Eisenhower pointed out, these were great leaders and great politicians and a great general. This isn't just Godfrey Bloom pointing this out. We all know that the CIA has gone rogue. We know that those attacks in Syria were false flag. All that's come out in the wash now. But of course, the British Foreign Office and MI5 and MI6 are poodles of the CIA. And the CIA actually own the souls of most TV presenters and MSM. Have you ever heard the CIA official line about anything be challenged by BBC, Channel 4 or Sky? Can any of your listeners produce a single example where anybody has challenged the CIA line?
Yeah, the answer, in my opinion, is a resounding no. Sylvia McClellan says Trump has already spoken out about the way the EU is treating us. Stav Woodcutter Stalin said, it's not the people who vote that count, it's the people who count the votes. Carol Weston, it's funny the pound has stayed solid today and not fallen. Surely all this uncertainty would make it drop. So the city obviously knew there would be an extension. And Sylvia McClellan says, if our votes really made a difference, we wouldn't be allowed to vote. And I think that probably brings us into our theme for tonight, Godfrey. Our votes, they just don't seem to count for anything anymore.
It's quite extraordinary, isn't it, that we can have... I mean, I was in the Brexit campaign for 25 years. I put a very significant amount of my own money in it. And I represented UKIP and then became independent in the European Parliament for 10 years. So I've seen the inside of the beast, as it were, from the belly of the beast. We fought tooth and nail to get a referendum. We won the concept of referendum. The referendum was won by Leave, and then the mainstream political parties said that they would abide by that, and it was in their manifestos. But still, it doesn't make any difference. So what we have is a political system which is broken. And what I would argue is it's been broken for a long time. There's an awful lot of people, ordinary people now in the pubs of clubs, especially up here in Yorkshire where I'm talking to you from, who didn't realise, who suspected that we didn't count. And now, of course, it's been made perfectly clear that what we think in the northeast or Yorkshire or the West Country or Wales, they don't care what we think because we're just an ignorant bunch of peasants and racists, which is their opinion of us. This is a very class-driven and a very London-driven thing. We are governed, and they hate it up in Yorkshire, I can tell you. We hate being governed by London, and we hate being governed by Brussels. And I don't think Doris, I call her Doris, Teresa, sorry, I keep on calling her Doris because she looks like a Doris. The problem is that she doesn't really understand how angry we all are because she's never been into a Yorkshire pub and asked anybody.
She must be mad. Well, she probably is. Psychotic type mad. But if she cannot grasp the fact that her own grassroots are now saying that they're refusing to deliver leaflets for the local elections in May, for example, and she doesn't realise that there is a crisis in her own party, she has to be have an extraordinarily abstract brain.
She's all political leaders, Ollie, and I've said it before and I stick with it. All political leaders of political parties are sociopaths. You have to be a sociopath to do the job. If she cared what people actually thought, she wouldn't have got to the top of the greasy pole. You have to have absolutely no moral dynamic whatsoever to get to lead a political party. We haven't had anybody with a serious moral dynamic leading a political party probably since Alec Douglas Hume, or maybe Churchill, perhaps. One might argue the toss about it. But there is no moral dynamic in politics. You get to the top by stabbing people in the back. And that's, of course, how everybody gets the job. And they're all the same. And people who vote Labour or Conservative or Liberal, whatever it is, if they think they're getting something different or somebody different, they're simply not. They're just getting another psycho.
So what do we do? I mean, LIBLABCON are clearly anti-democratic, non-representative, hate the democratic will of the British people. What was it? 408 of 650 constituencies. I harp on about this figure every night. 62.8%. A landslide voted to retake their sovereignty. And the parliament is what? 70% remain? Something like that? What do we do? What do we do?
Well, the first thing that needs to happen, if we're going to two things. First, if we're going to continue with the representative democracy, MPs, potential MPs, selected by the constituency and local members. You have to stop this business of head offices, Conservative or Labour Party head offices, making the final selection. So these people aren't beholden to their constituencies or their members.
Parachuting in yes men, basically, no? That's what we're seeing, no? They're parachuting in their cronies as opposed to people that would represent the constituents.
Yes, let me give you an example of that. Chelmsford. Now, the Chelmsford MP now is a woman called Vicky Ford, who I used to call Vichy Ford because she was such a keen Remainer and she campaigned for Remain. Chelmsford is one of the safest Conservative seats in the country, and they parachuted her into Chelmsford, much against the will of the local Chelmsford Constituency Association. And they left people like Saeed Kamal, dedicated Leavers, they left them without a seat. They deliberately selected Remainers to come in at the very last election. That was very recent. And Chelmsford people are very cross, are very angry. Now, we're very high profile Remainers. There's a move to deselect them, but the move to deselect Dominic Grieve was overturned by the Prime Minister. They can't even overturn.
Right.
So the only thing they can do is they won't canvass and they won't deliver leaflets. But I think the Conservative vote in May is going to simply slump. I can't imagine anybody delivering a leaflet or having the nerve. No Conservative candidate would dare knock on our doors in my village in Yorkshire. They simply wouldn't dare do it, even if they wanted to.
So that's the 2nd of May, Thursday, the 2nd of May, local elections. Now, last night, Chris Hicks was on here and he pointed out that in a constituency of a friend of his, there is only the choice of Conservatives, Labour and Lib Dem on the ticket. They haven't got any other choice. What do they do?
Well, you simply don't vote. I've always been hostile to this idea of you vote for the least ghastly individual. You simply don't vote. Problem that we have in this country, that there will be at the next general election, there will be hundreds of thousands of people who will vote Conservative regardless in order to keep Corbyn out. We have for years and years, decades, voted for the least disgusting potential Prime Minister. And I think that's the problem with the electoral system. But we've got to learn to stay at home. We've got to learn not to vote.
Why is UKIP not fielding candidates everywhere now? They have a great chance to pick up a huge vote. And even if they don't win the constituencies, the tally will be huge, bigger than they've ever seen. What was it? 3.8 million in the election before last. They could go way above that now. But is it as basic as presumably money or?
Well, of course, UKIP was basically sabotaged back in 2013 or 2014. There was an appalling party chairman in Steve Crowther, who most members actually believed was a government plant. That's how bad he was. They thought he was working for the opposition. There was no local representation for UKIP, so the regions didn't have a say in the NEC. The NEC, the National Executive Committee of UKIP, should have been represented by regions. So Yorkshire and North East and North West and South West, they should have sent their representatives to the NEC. But the NEC, but then the hierarchy, the party hierarchy, couldn't control those people. So UKIP became, instead of being a grassroots party, became totally undemocratic within its own situation. And so consequently, the grassroots people, those hardworking people who were founder members of UKIP, were pushed out for latecomers who in the main were political chancers. So your betrayal of UKIP started in 2012 and 2013. They got away with that up until the last Euro elections in 2014. And then, of course, it collapsed. And then what they're trying to do now is to try and rebuild that. But of course, it's a steep hill to climb in such a short period of time.
Well, they were nearly bankrupt, weren't they, under that Henry Bolton or whatever? Not that it was his fault.
Well, yes, but there's
my point was that Batten has recovered
Nigel,
that now. He's recovered that now, and he seems to have pulled up the figures, the number of members and what have you that have gone up and what have you. UKIP, is it not a force to be reckoned with again?
Oh yes, they are. It's all a question of timing. I think they're kicking around 8%. When I resigned in 2013, they just tweaked about 20%. But that was when the party was at its height, when it hadn't been gripped by political correctness, by the hierarchy, where you could speak for the people, and I was recognized and other members were recognized in pubs. People came up and shook hands. Then it became politically correct. When there was a sniff of House of Lords, when there was a sniff of knighthoods, CBEs, OBEs, all of a sudden UKIP came politically correct. And those people who'd latterly joined the party all climbed on board. Now, those people have gone now. Those people have departed. But the rebuilding process at Gerard Batten's trying to do. He's trying to build that. That is going to take time. And of course, we lost an opportunity. Nigel put Bolton in. Nigel Farage anointed Bolton.
Yes.
In the sure knowledge that he was going off to start his own political party. And what he wanted to do, he wanted to take members of UKIP with him to the new party, which turns out to be Brexit. So he left a poison pill in this man Bolton, who nearly destroyed the party. It was very clever machinery. It was fairly Machiavellian for those who didn't understand it. But of course, being from the inside, I knew exactly what was going on.
You were Farage's flatmate once upon a time, so you obviously know this guy rather well. Would you class him as being one of these folks that wanted an OBE or a knighthood or something, that basically has sort of sold his soul? Because he did seem to be right on top geezer for Brexit, helped us get that referendum and all the rest of it, incredible orator. But since then, I'm just kind of wondering what the deal is with the Brexit party. It just seems to be smearing the one chance that we had for the kind of coalition government, maybe a Tory, DUP, UKIP coalition, where UKIP could actually be talking about things potentially like direct democracy or proportional representation and holding the government's feet to the fire over Brexit. It seems to me that chance is being kicked in the guts by the Brexit party, which is, and actually Nigel Farage personally smearing UKIP. What's your take?
Well, Nigel Farage is now running a party, and he wants to get as many votes and as many people leaving UKIP to join Brexit as he can. So it's a good old-fashioned political fight. Now, the interesting thing is, and I'll explain this because a lot of your listeners may not perhaps understand it, Brexit is designed for your bourgeoisie. It is a bourgeois idea. It will pull in Eurosceptic Tory voters in the suburbs. It's a suburban party. Nigel's a public school boy. He's a keen campaigner. He's a good orator. He's a good speaker. There's no question about that. He will pull in those people. I'm quite sure, and Brexit will get probably 10% of the vote unless something goes wrong.
The Brexit
now, Gerald
party.
Batten's taken them in a different direction. He's taken them in a different direction. He wants the working class vote, so he should take the old Labour vote. And of course, UKIP, people used to think UKIP was a danger to the Conservative Party. It was a much bigger danger to the Labour Party. And it was old Labour that delivered the Leave vote. They delivered the Brexit vote. So I think what will happen is Nigel will do very good with Brexit in the leafy suburbs. And UKIP will do very well in the more hard-bitten old Labour areas. And under proportional representation, that will mean that they should turn in something in the region of 20% or 25% of the Eurosceptic vote. And that's how it will pan out. And I've won a lot of money over the years predicting how European elections will go, because I'm quite good at this, having fought 2 or 3. I know how it works. Now, the problem that we have in the European Union, it's all based on groups. It's based on groups within the Parliament, within the European Parliament. And the Eurosceptics next time round will have an opportunity to form, if not the biggest, the second biggest party in the entire Parliament. Salvini is coming back with the Italians. The Spanish are starting to grow, Hungarians, Poles. Marine Le Pen of the Front National, she's coming back. It could be a massive group. But the problem with Brexit, the Brexit party is they are very bourgeois, and they will not like rubbing shoulders or sitting down with people who eat their peas off a knife. And this is one of the contentions I always had when I was a member of UKIP. You have to be prepared to sit down. It doesn't matter what their political views are on the economy. It doesn't matter what their views are on religion or homosexuality or abortion. None of that is relevant. You have to sit down and make an alliance with people who want the same thing, which is national freedom, self-government, and leave everything, all the baggage behind. Brexit won't be able to do that, I'm afraid.
We have somebody who's called in. Good evening, sir or madam. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, no, it's Derek Shepherd.
Hey, Derek. Ah, lovely. Now, Derek, please bear with me. Bear with me a second, and I'll bring you in a second into this conversation. Thank you. Derek is an activist on the ground trying to sort out actually the protests on Saturday, on the 13th, and I want to bring him in to find out what the deal is with that now that this extension is going through, and we're moving, in a slightly different direction from Brexit, apparently. Okay, so Godfrey, we have two Brexit parties. It is surely a problem. I know that the Brexit party is saying that they're only going to run in the EU elections, but the fact is that the kind of things that is being said by the Brexit party is nonetheless damaging UKIP and assisting LIBLABCON and therefore the EU. Is that not disgraceful? And is it not the case that if these people were true patriots, they would be setting aside what I personally tend to class as party political poison, pulling together for the sake of the country? So two questions there. The damage and are they for real? Are they genuine? Who can we trust?
Well, you can't trust anybody in politics, is my experience. But what will happen under the rather complex system of proportional representation, it won't do any damage. It's not first past the post. So it really doesn't matter if you vote UKIP or you vote Brexit. As long as you vote UKIP or Brexit, you're okay. You will get a genuine Eurosceptic party. What you don't want to do is vote Conservative. That you might get a Eurosceptic, because most Conservative MEPs are Remainers. And most Labour MEPs are Remainers. So what people are going to have to do, whether you're a Labour or Conservative, when you're going to lend your vote, and people do lend their votes at Euro elections, you have to have a good look at, long look at the man you're sending, and you need to examine him. And if he's a Remainer, you must vote Brexit or UKIP. If you have a genuine Leaver, for example, Saeed Kamal or Dan Hannan, it's okay to vote Conservative. But what you can't do is return to a tribal loyalty of Labour or Conservative, and you're actually sending a fifth column there. And at the moment, I can tell you, I was out there long enough, most Labour and MEPs and Conservative MEPs are staunch federalists.
You say to trust the likes of Hannan or even Bill Cash, who is fighting our corner, for example, or Kate Hoey on the other side of the house, but they're still under the whip of parties that are clearly anti-democratic. Why should people support those that support parties that effectively are supporting EU tyranny?
Well, I wouldn't. My advice to everybody listening, if you are a Eurosceptic, is to either vote Brexit or UKIP. Don't touch anyone else with a barge pole. But if you really feel, let's say, for example, your MEP is going to be Saeed Kamal in London or Dan Hannan or something like that, you might take a more flexible approach. But if I were, certainly my advice to anybody listening tonight is vote Brexit or vote UKIP. And that's the end of that. I believe that wholeheartedly.
Okay. Caller, please, what have you got to say for us? What's going on Saturday? Remind me, please, the name of your action group.
Yeah, it was called Brexit the Protest on Facebook. We've only been going about 2 weeks so far.
Wow, Derek. And you've got quite a few people that are interested in that. Derek Shepherd, thank you very much indeed for calling in. I wanted you to call in because I wanted an update. I'm guessing that everybody in your group is as despondent as the rest of us about what's happened with the extension and what have you. Will there still be a protest, so far as you're concerned, on Saturday?
Oh, obviously, yes, we will be. Yes.
And what sort of numbers are you expecting, sir?
We're not going to be very strong on the ground. That's the problem. We've only been going 2 weeks, but we managed to get 30, 40 people out in 7 different cities last week, and we're filled in 5 this week. What we're really short of is people who will come forward to actually volunteer to run an event. And the other problem is getting in members. But with 17.4 million, you think people will be screaming to go and protest. But what we're doing is protesting in every city and town that we can get to.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you. I want you to hang about, and because this conversation is going to involve the kind of things that you're involved in, and please chip in if you'd like to, because Godfrey, Derek here is one of the grassroots, the kind of guy that, frankly, are the salt of the earth so far as Brexit is concerned. The people that we need, people like Chris Hicks that was on the show last night, who is arranging for coachloads of people to go to the Palace of Westminster, to the lobby in the Palace of Westminster, accompanied by peers of the realm, chaperoned by peers of the realm. And actually, I've been involved in trying to set that up as well, Godfrey. I think the bottom line is that we're just all feeling so helpless. What do we need to do? Is there anything we can do, or do we just basically say, hands up, it's fine, Lisbon Treaty's on the way, that's great, PESCO's on the way, you can have the military, and then it's game over, surrender. Good old Blighty, good old Britain is gone.
Well, of course, I was that man. I was Derek in 1989, 1990. When we were hiring halls, I was putting money in and giving free sandwiches away and all the rest of it. Nobody turned up. It was heartbreaking, and it went on for years and years and years. And that went on for 20 years, 25 years. And eventually we won through in the end to get a referendum and win the referendum. And it was absolutely marvelous. But of course, we're up against deep state. Now, the analogy I always use here, Ollie, is that we are on a train. All the passengers on the train want to go to Scarborough, but the driver and the co-driver and the signalman want to go to Manchester. Yeah. Now, the long and short of it is it doesn't matter what we think, because we don't have the levers of power. We don't have the levers of power, so there isn't anything we can do about it. The only thing we can do about it, and I hate to say this, and I'm incidentally by no means advocating it, the only thing to do is for 17.4 million people to go to London and burn down the House of Commons. That is the only way we're going to get to leave with leave meaning leave. But of course, we're Middle England. Most leavers, most people of Middle England, the butcher, the baker, the hairdresser, the cab driver, the doctor. We don't do that kind of thing. And when we don't do that kind of thing, and Theresa May and her government know we don't do that kind of thing, they can treat us with this kind of contempt. A civil war. Now, whether we're going to have a civil war over this, I don't know. I don't think we are, because I tell you what I think is that the European Union is going to collapse before we actually have to take to the streets. Yeah. It's going to collapse. It's already collapsing. It's unpopular in Italy, France. The biggest Eurosceptic groups are coming back in a few months' time. You're not going to believe it. The banks, the ECB are broke. The ECB are going to break it. The euro is breaking it. There's 30% unemployed youth in the Mediterranean bases. This whole game is over. Right. Forget about Brexit. The game is over. The thing is crumbling. It's falling into the sea as we speak. So it really doesn't matter whether it happens this year or next year. It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is also, though, surely we need to keep the pressure up. I completely agree with you about EU implosion. But is it not important for us to keep the pressure up that then, for example, in the EU Parliament, which, as you suggest, is going to change considerably as of, May the 29th, with a considerably more Eurosceptic gathering, is it not the case that we have to be seen to encourage them? I don't know why is my phone ringing, and that's the Viscount. Yeah, I'll have to call him back later. Rodrigo, bless you, mate. You should get on the show and have a chat. He was on last night. Viscount St David's organising lobby for democracy and also part of that Tilbrook guarantoring it. Do we not need to? And now I don't know who's calling me there. Anyway, and do we not need Godfrey to? Turn off. Excuse me. Bit of chaos on Daily Chaos. Yeah. Do we not need to encourage the likes of, I don't know, whoever it is in Greece now? I don't know if Syriza is any good. It seems to me that they were bought within days of gaining power. But maybe Vox in Spain, for example, Marine Le Pen's lot in France. I think they changed their name, didn't they? And the MEPs from the Brexit Party stroke UKIP in there, and maybe AFD for Germany and whatever else. Do we not need to keep on demonstrating, keep on marching, keep on doing whatever we can to encourage these folks?
Of course we do. I'm not suggesting we give up the fight. I'm just suggesting, having been slightly cynical in my 70th year and been in the Brexit game now for over 25 years, all I'm doing is saying this is what is going to happen, because sadly, I hope I'm wrong. Sadly, I'm very rarely wrong. Everything I've said in the last 25 years has taken place. Everything. I've never been wrong, not once. So I'm telling you what is going to happen, whether we like it or not. But yes, by all means, keep the pressure up. AFD are helping in Germany. They're starting now to get the German people to wake up. The French people are beginning to wake up. The Italians have already woken up. The Poles and the Hungarians have woken up. But this isn't going to come from a democratic mandate, because we've just seen how useless a democratic mandate is in this country. We had a constitution, a British constitution. We have a constitutional monarchy. We have a House of Parliament. And they don't give a shit what we think. And we can vote and we're blue in the face. It's not going to change anything. But I'm afraid it's got to be really rough and tumble of street demonstrations. It's got to get rougher. It's got to get nastier. It's got to get worse before it gets better.
Oh, blimey. Derek, what do you say to that, mate?
Well, one of the reasons I first started it was to get some peaceful protests out in this next few weeks, because I feel the same way. It could go rough. I don't want to see that. I'd rather see people come out in peaceful protest in their thousands in the street on whatever day we call, and stand and protest. Get this out on social media, because the main media won't help us. But I firmly believe that there's enough people out there that really want to protest, and they will come forward. But they'd find it difficult to find people like us.
Social media is a very painful experience for any of us that are using it on a regular basis, is it not? I mean, it's not really much better than the mainstream media in terms of, I don't know, what is there? Probably about 200-300 people watching this show between YouTube and Facebook. Sure, it's shared and all the rest of it off the back of that, and the view figures do go up a bit. But the bottom line is that we are largely in an echo chamber. We're being herded, corralled, Godfrey.
Yeah.
It's extraordinarily frustrating, no, sir?
Yeah.
Oh yes.
I remember. You see, I was part of the Countryside Alliance demonstration. Just, this one's for Derek, really, who I think is doing a good job, and I wish him well, believe me. Where there were 300,000 of us, and we went on a Sunday, and we didn't drop any litter, and we closed the gates, and we were as good as gold. Utterly futile. When the demonstrations came against the poll tax, there was only a few thousand people, but they set fire to cars and broke streets up and started throwing rocks through windows. It got rid of the poll tax in about 3 weeks. I'm very sorry this is how life is. It shouldn't be like that in a democracy, but that's the truth of the matter. They just don't take any notice, but they will take notice if you start going down there and start burning a few cars. I'm not advocating that. Let me tell you again, I'm not advocating that. What I'm actually saying is that is the only thing that government listens to is street violence. And I think that's disgraceful, and that's a shame in a free society, but it's of the government's making.
You know, I'm not sure.
Well,
It's sorry, Derek.
mate.
No, please, Derek, carry on, please.
Well, from comments that I get the impression that people are building up to that, and it does worry me a little, because I don't think I reluctantly have to agree. Maybe it is the only way, but we started off as a non-yellow vest movement, but people have suggested me in the group that we should go to be a yellow vest.
You know,
yeah, my wife just said to me, you don't know how far to go. I felt that the yellow vest would give over some sort of aggressive look, and I didn't really like it much, but I'm beginning to think that it's the only way.
Hello?
They weren't. The yellow vests, bless them, in France, the gilets jaunes, I don't think they were at all. They started out because they were protesting petrol tax, and then it grew, and people are just very, very concerned with the fact that they've got this Bilderberg ex-banker Goldman Sachs in charge, who doesn't seem to care about them, who was reducing taxes for the rich whilst taxing the everybody else far more heavily. I just want to apologise to folks that come on the show and are hoping for more encouragement than I'm able to extract from my guest tonight. We've had somebody else. We've had somebody else who's called in. Who is that, please?
It's me. It's Wolfcat.
Hey, Wolfcat. How are you, Wolfcat? Andrea.
Don't worry, I'm not going to kick off like last night. Last night I was so frustrated about a lot of things, and I was glad that you allowed me to blow a few fuses. I really am. Thank you for that, first of all.
Have you got a question for Godfrey, please?
I certainly do. What does Godfrey think about the Swiss way of doing things? You know, the Swiss, they don't have elections like we do. They don't have some or these parliament, these what you call them, these parties, pirates. I nearly call them the parties. They can just go and do a referendum on their own account, because it's the people who are actually in charge of Switzerland, and that is the reason why Switzerland never joined the EU, but they were forced to let go of their banking secrecy.
Direct democracy, Godfrey. Way forward?
Thank you.
Yes. I have a lot of friends in Switzerland. I go to Switzerland. I lecture sometimes in Switzerland. They have a very good system insofar it's local. They're cantons. So the best form of democracy is local. And if you look at the city-states of the Italian Renaissance, you'll see how much more effective that they were. You're much better off with local government, and local government meaning something. And that's a very good system. The Swiss have a good system. But I'm afraid they have, but make no mistake about it, they have their political class. They've given ground on secrecy on banking. They've given ground on immigration. They have given ground against the wishes of their own electorate. So the Swiss system is much better than anybody else's, but it's still not perfect. And any Swiss will tell you the same.
Okay. Can I just elaborate on my question after you said that, please? If you agree with me that the Swiss system is better to the parliamentary system, with the party parliamentary system that we have in so-called democratic countries, right, then how come that the EU establishment are telling us that nation-states are dangerous because they could cause wars? So, in other words, if, for example, and I totally agree with you on that, for example, Great Britain is a relatively huge island, the biggest island of Europe, but it has got different needs. The people in the north have different needs to the people in the west, and that applies to every single country, and that would certainly apply to a united Europe, a huge European state, if you wish. And I don't think, hello?
Go on.
Yeah, with you still, yeah.
And I don't think that any central government can cater for all of these needs. So wouldn't it be better if there's less centralization and more localization on decision-making, on a whole number of things? Because I certainly do not believe that reducing the power of my vacuum cleaner, my light bulb, is going to kick it.
Yes.
Are you there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a question here, Wolfcat?
Yeah, my question is it seriously as dangerous as they make out if we decentralize? Wouldn't it be better if we, each region as such, would just do their own thing, but come on certain things to some form of common agreement?
Over things
Well,
like
I would
trade.
argue
Go on, Godfrey,
that if you
please.
have a local region, or local state, call it whatever you like, and you make your own decisions, and the people make their own decisions, and they're represented by their own politicians who've been elected by the grassroots, which was the whole point of democracy to start with. On matters of centralization, one or two things, but centralization, central powers, doesn't matter what the power is, they always want to gather more power to them with centralization. And if you look, the best example you could ever see of this is the American Civil War, which wasn't a civil war. It was a war between the North and the South. The southern counties wanted to secede, the southern states. And all that's happened is, if you go back to the Declaration of Independence, the states were independent, states would make their own laws, and one or two things would be centralized for the common good. And of course, when they got fed up with that in 1861 and the South wanted to secede from the Union, the Washington sent a great big army. And ever since then, Washington has dominated the United States of America, and the power of the states has become less and less. As soon as you give power, if you give power to any centralized authority, their whole job, their whole raison d'etre is to make sure they get more and more and more. Look at Brussels. Brussels want more and more and more power. It always drains away.
You are so absolutely on my wavelength, because the more centralized something gets, what it means in the end is power. And what the little people do is we just have to feed them. That's all we need to do. You know, we are just a trough they live from. And they don't care about us people, how we feel in the Northeast or anywhere else in the UK. As long as everything
they don't care. They don't visit the Northeast. They don't visit Yorkshire. I mean, I'm speaking to you now from just less than probably 100 miles further south than where you are now. I thought you might say that. But I'm quite sure, you see, it's not just the Northeast or the Northwest or Yorkshire. Yorkshire voted, like the Northeast, we voted overwhelmingly to leave. But we're run by London. We're run by people who don't go to the pub. They don't play cricket locally. They don't play football or rugby. These people, they live in their own world. And may I finish the programme perhaps with a quote from Dr. Johnson of yesteryear, who said, very presciently in my view, Dr. Johnson said, never mistake the view of the country as being the same as the view of a London dinner party. And the trouble is, our Prime Minister, she thinks her dinner party opinions are reflected throughout the rest of the country. And that's where she makes her mistake.
Godfrey Bloom. Godfrey Bloom, thank you very much indeed, sir. I do just want to take a few comments. I understand if you want to go now. I just want to take a few comments as well, because I really neglected them last night. And I'm
going to go as well, Ollie. Bye-bye.
Wolfcat, God bless you. God bless you.
Wolfcat.
Carol Weston says, I'm talking about the British yellow vests that aren't getting the publicity they deserve. No, absolutely they're not. I wonder if there's a D notice on that. Carol Weston, it's not working in France, though. They're burning the capital. They cannot get rid of Macron. They want referenda as well. Do they not, Godfrey? The Yellow Vests are calling for that. Sounds like a very, very sensible idea.
Yes, but of course they're being crushed by the police as the people in Catalonia were crushed.
Yes.
There's a reason they want a European army. It isn't to fight the Russians. It's to fight their own people. That's why they want an army.
Yeah. Stav Woodcutter says, ask Godfrey what he thinks of the Gilets Jaunes. Well, I just did. The proposed referendum initiated by the citizens. Stav Woodcutter also says, now you're talking my language, Wolfcat. Decentralized system is bang on by blockchain. Bring it on. The tech era. Charles Smith, immigration has destroyed my area. No one speaking English no more. Jason O'Brien, big government will always bankrupt a nation. Jesus Jones says payment equals pay mind. Corporations are just power of the mind because they are dead. And I did want to ask you one last question before we wrap up, Godfrey, please. Might you be running? Might you be running as an MEP in May?
I never say never in politics. It's very unlikely, but I'm not going to say it's totally out of the question because you never quite know what's going to happen in a couple of weeks, do you really? But probably not. I've done my whack, but you never know.
If it was a choice between UKIP and the Brexit Party, could you answer that? Could you answer that, I wonder?
No, I wouldn't. It was I only came into politics to start with as a patriot and wanting self-government of my country. And if I felt that I could do something to further that in any way, regardless of what it was, I would do that. But it's very unlikely at the moment. But I wish, I will say, I'll finish on this one, Ollie. I wish Brexit and UKIP every single success possible in the Euro elections, believe me, unreservedly.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. Yeah, this has been the Daily Brexit. Big cheers to Godfrey Bloom. I'm Olly Connelly. And also to Derek Shepherd, who wants bums on seats on Saturday. And to Wolfcat, Andrea. Somehow I feel that the week is incomplete. I mean, for this show, yeah, for the show. I don't feel as though I've quite done my job, to be honest with you. Somehow. I don't know. You know, normally this show kind of leaves, I hope, on an optimistic note. For the week ahead, even though we know that it's going to be more Groundhog Day and all that. But it is very hard right now to be optimistic about much, to be honest. So I apologise for that. But we will keep fighting, yeah? We will keep fighting, and we'll keep supporting Robin Tilbrook. And we'll keep pushing this lobby for democracy idea, and people like Derek Shepherd and all of us coming together to lobby together. Because you know what, if we don't keep fighting and don't keep encouraging, for example, the Eurosceptics in the forthcoming assembly in the EU Parliament, which will be Eurosceptic, considerably more so than this one, then, well, you know what? We might as well just give up. And we're not going to do that, yeah? We're not going to do that. Here's to us. And bugger plutocracy. I'll see you Monday, 7 o'clock. God bless you. And you know what? I might see you before then. But if not before, I'll see you then. Have a great weekend, folks. Yeah. Keep going. Keep going. All right.